the latest figures,
You've
so
had
we've got to make sure
years to come up with some ideas on this, and we have. We've got We've got a workforce plan for the NHS. We've got a workforce plan for social care.
You don't have a workforce plan for social care.
It will inform a
vote
on the floor of the House of Commons from your democratically elected representatives. We'll be able to cap the visas.
It is absolute rubbish. You've had
talk about the issues that the question of
net migration has gone up.
You have no idea. You have no workforce strategy. You have no industrial strategy. You have no
Are you talking to me or Rishi?
Thank you.
Are you talking to me or Rishi? Because that is exactly.
You have been in an election campaign. What's your plan?
Thank you.
You haven't got one.
Thank you, Angela Rayner. Stephen Flynn.
Follow that.
Angela Rayner was thrown into the lion's den during a fiery interview that quickly spiralled out of control. What started as a routine Q&A turned into a full-blown ambush as the crowd turned hostile, hammering her with criticism and leaving her visibly flustered, scrambling for answers. She tried to stay composed, but the pressure kept building. Here's what happened.
I'd like to actually ask the members of Parliament that are present on the panel what part of democracy they don't actually understand. Parliament had a ballot, did it not, in order to have the referendum. They voted 6-1 to have the ballot. You took that ballot, you took the chance, we had the referendum, you didn't get the answer that you wanted, and now you want to turn it round. I didn't vote.
The room buzzed with energy as BBC's Question Time pressed on. Angela Rayner seated confidently among the panellists, ready to defend Labour's record. But the tone shifted in an instant. A man in the audience stood up, his frustration quiet but unmistakable. Instead of the usual political back and forth, he zeroed in on something deeper, Labour's stance on democracy. His challenge wasn't loud or emotional, but it cut through the noise with precision. The mood changed, the air grew tense. It was no longer a debate, it had become a direct confrontation.
Government, can I have a ballot?
Can I answer your question? I mean, what I was saying, and my clarity is that I'm not saying and I'm not suggesting we ignore the vote. The vote is quite clear. But as a Member of Parliament, I have a responsibility for British jobs, British workers,
you
and for
have
our
a
public service, and to support that. So you need clarity that we're going to safeguard that.
No. All right.
Sorry, your job is to represent the public, the people who elect you. Start doing your job. If you don't like it, clear off. Simple as that.
The studio erupted with applause as heads nodded in agreement and cheers echoed across the room. But this wasn't just about one question. It tapped into something much bigger. The audience's reaction revealed a rising wave of frustration, the kind that's been simmering beneath the surface for months. Voters who felt overlooked and dismissed finally saw their feelings laid bare. In that moment, he wasn't just speaking for himself, he was giving voice to a silent majority.
She and I have never really met, certainly never spoken to each other, despite being in this house together for 7 years. We have some things in common, not much. We were both born in 1980, although I'm older and wiser than she is. People often think we're both much younger than we really are, because we've got such great skin and good hair. And we're both known as being quite feisty. So I'm really pleased.
Rayner's smile faltered. A nervous laugh slipped out as she shifted in her seat, clearly thrown off. Rather than confront the issue head-on, she pivoted, dodging the core of the challenge with a practiced deflection. It was classic political manoeuvring, but this time it fell flat. The audience wasn't buying it. They recognized the tactic instantly, a politician sidestepping accountability when it mattered most. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. The authority in the room no longer belonged to the panel. It belonged to the people watching, questioning, and refusing to be silenced. Angela Rayner frequently leans on her working-class background. It's the cornerstone of her brand, as Labour's authentic voice. She positions herself as the relatable one, the outsider who hasn't forgotten where she came from. But when pushed to define who she truly represents, the cracks begin to show. She insists she's not like the rest, that her blunt speech and unfiltered style make her more approachable. She claims that by being unapologetically real, she bridges the gap between Westminster and the average voter. But the problem is, when the spotlight burns brightest, that carefully crafted image starts to blur, and the question remains, who is she really speaking for? In Parliament, Angela Rayner has faced a question that should be straightforward. How do you define a working person? But each time she's sidestepped it. What should be a clear, confident answer turns into a muddled string of talking points about fairness, opportunity, and equality. Buzzwords that say everything and nothing at once. And that's the real problem. Labour prides itself on being the champion of the working class. It's the party that claims to know their struggles, their values, their fight. But when the deputy leader can't even pin down who those people are, it raises deeper doubts. Is Labour losing touch with its own roots? Because this isn't just a political misstep, it's a revealing moment, one that makes voters wonder who, exactly, the party is fighting for. People don't need a lecture on what it means to be working class. They're living it every day. They feel it in their rent, their grocery bills, their shrinking paychecks. The cost of living keeps rising, jobs feel less secure, and it's always the middle and lower classes taking the biggest hit. They don't need a politician to define their struggle. They are the definition. But Rayner? She talks about it like she's reading from a script. When pressed for something real, something grounded in the day-to-day reality of ordinary people, she fell flat. It wasn't just a dodge. It was a blank space where an answer should have been. And for someone who's built her identity on representing the working class, that silence spoke volumes. In Parliament, Angela Rayner was asked a pointed, straightforward question. Do the UK's 5 million small business owners count as working people? Instead of giving a clear answer, she defaulted to political theatre, redirecting the focus with a jab at the Conservatives and skirting the actual issue entirely. And that right there highlights the growing disconnect. Labour continues to brand itself as the party for struggling families and working people, but their policies often tell a different story. Small businesses face mounting pressure, rising taxes, increasing overheads, and regulations that seem more out of touch by the day. These aren't abstract problems. They're kitchen table issues for millions. Yet the party's responses come from boardrooms, not living rooms. The more Labour talks about helping ordinary people while ignoring the struggles of those keeping local economies afloat, the clearer it becomes. They're speaking to an idea of the working class, not the reality. Critics argue that Rayner has slipped into the very political bubble she once railed against. The voice that once echoed the concerns of working people now feels distant, and working class voters are beginning to take notice. Democracy means elections, unless Labour's calling the shots. In a decision that triggered nationwide backlash, Labour scrapped elections in critical regions, conveniently the same places where Reform UK was gaining traction. The result? 5.5 million people were stripped of their right to vote. This wasn't red tape, it was strategy. Reform UK under Nigel Farage has been gaining serious ground, especially with working class voters Labour used to rely on. But instead of facing the challenge head-on, Labour shut the door, cancelling elections, silencing voters, and stopping any chance for real competition. The backlash was immediate. People were furious. Many saw it as a brazen attack on democracy. Labour behaving less like a party of the people and more like a party afraid of them. It's one thing to debate ideas. It's another to deny millions a voice in their own future. Angela Rayner speaks with confidence at Labour rallies, but that confidence fades under pressure. During a tense interview with BBC's Laura Koonsberg, she was visibly rattled, offering contradictions, dodges and spin instead of clarity. The conversation revealed more than policy confusion, it exposed a lack of readiness. The worrying part? This wasn't an ambush. It came from a journalist often seen as fair. If Rayner struggles to hold her ground in a studio chair, how will she fare on the world stage? Each shaky answer chips away at her image, and if it continues, Labour's credibility won't be far behind.
Hi, I'm Emily Carver. Now, in a recent car crash interview, the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Minister, Angela Rayner, made glaring contradictions in her party's housing and immigration policies. Now, it would appear Labour's approach to these rather important issues is not just misguided, it's downright dangerous for Britain's future. The housing crisis that isn't, Or is it? Well, Rayner began by highlighting a housing crisis only to perform an astonishing U-turn just moments later, claiming suddenly there is plenty of housing already. OK, so there's a bewildering contradiction here, and it's left even the seasoned interviewer, Sir Trevor Phillips, visibly taken aback. It's as if Labour can't decide whether we're in a housing crisis or swimming in surplus properties. So let's consider
The UK's housing crisis is already at breaking point. Families stuck on endless waiting lists, rents through the roof and homelessness on the rise. So when Angela Rayner and Labour-backed policies that give council housing priority to migrants, it hit a raw nerve. For years, British citizens have been left waiting, paying taxes, working long hours and playing by the rules, only to be told they're not first in line. Labour's move didn't just spark concern, it unleashed a wave of outrage. To many, it felt like a betrayal by a party that once promised to put them first. Critics slammed it as a betrayal of working-class Britons, the very group Labour claims to champion. Rayner attempted to soften the blow with talk of fairness, human rights and inclusivity, but no amount of polished rhetoric can mask the reality. Voters see the imbalance, and with every policy that feels unjust, Labour's trust with the public erodes further. Angela Rayner once stood out as Labour's firebrand, a straight-talking voice for ordinary people. But now, each stumble chips away at the image she built, and with every misstep, her connection to those she vowed to represent grows weaker.
The government, let's talk about the fact that they were well aware of what happened, or what could happen at Grenfell, and they failed to act. What is this government going to do?
Well, first of all, reading Sir Martin's summary and the volumes that he's collated, the failures were systemic. Absolutely everybody, whether it was a regulator, whether it was those that had the materials, whether it was the government, whether it was the council, the tenant management organiser, every single layer failed to recognise and to protect those residents at Grenfell, and it is absolutely shocking to see that. And this government has got to make sure that we accelerate remediation. I've looked at it and I'm not happy with the pace that we're at the moment. And we've got to look at the 58 recommendations that Sir Martin has come forward and make sure that we do everything we can to meet those and go beyond to ensure that people are confident that...
She stumbled on live TV, failed to define the very people she claims to represent, ducked hard questions and thrown her support behind deeply unpopular policies. And with every misstep, the fallout grows. Voters who once viewed Rayner as a bold, relatable leader now see someone barely holding the line for her own party. But this story isn't just about her. It's about Labour's direction. If the party keeps turning a blind eye to public sentiment, doubling down on divisive ideas and shutting out opposing voices, the consequences won't be limited to headlines. They'll show up at the polls. Rayner's future is hanging in the balance. Labour's, it's looking even shakier, and if change doesn't come fast, the next election won't be a reckoning, it'll be a rejection. Like and subscribe for more content just like this.